Hello everyone, I am Gayatri On the fifth and the last day of our presentation of semester 3, I am going to deal with the topic Gayatri Chakravorty Spivak's concept of subaltern and as well with the reference of cultural studies. These are my personal informations. This is the table of content. So imagine a world where your voice is silenced, where your story is never heard, where you are invisible. This is the world of subaltern. In the essay Can the Subaltern Speak, Gayatri Spivak delves into the plight of those relegated to the margin of society. The subaltern is not merely the oppressed or the marginalized, but those whose very existence is denied by the dominant discourse. They are the ones who have no history, no voice, and no place in the grand narrative of progress. Spivak question is not simply a matter whether the subaltern can speak, but how they can speak. For in a world where their voices are already spoken for by the dominant culture, how can they even truly articulate their own subjectivity? So first, let's get some information about Gayatri Chakravorty Spivak. So he was born on 24th February 1942 in Calcutta. She was an Indian literary theorist, feminist critic, post-colonial theorist, and a professor of comparative literature, and noted for her personal brand of deconstructive criticism, which she called interventionist. And she was the founder of Subaltern Studies Collective, and her primary essay was Can Subaltern Speak? So, what is cultural studies? Cultural studies is an interdisciplinary field of studies, which means that it draws from many different subject areas, including sociology, anthropology, political science, and history. Cultural study is, in fact, the study of the way in which culture is constructed and organized, and the way in which it evolves and challenges over time. Then, what is subaltern? Subaltern means a people consider subaltern as the present group of people in the society, people of inferior race, not fit for making any real contribution to the society, and therefore they cannot speak. But in reality, subaltern can speak. Others do not have the patience to listen to them. The subaltern is a military term which means of lower rank. The subaltern has become the major issue of discussion in post colonial studies. It tries to explore the unjust representation of the third world women and men, working class or black people in literature. Then the concept of subaltern came from the work or from the reference of Antonio Gramsci, and then it comes to Gayatri Chakravorty Spivak. So the notion of the subaltern was first referred by the Italian Marxist post-colonial activist Antonio Gramsci in his article Notes on Italian History, which appeared later on as part of his mostly widely known book Prison Notebook, written between 1929 and 1935. In this work and in this context, Gramsci tried to define the theory, the word subaltern, and according to him, subaltern means the any low rank person or group of people in a particular society suffering under hegemonic domination of a ruling elite class that denies them the basic rights of participation in the making of local history and culture as active individual of the same nation. In his work this prison notes book, he said that I quote, the subaltern classes by definition are not unified and cannot unite until they are able to become a state. Their history therefore is intertwined with that of civil society, and thereby with the history of states and group of states, I unquote. Then this concept, after led by one Indian Ranjit Guha, with the emergence of subaltern study group or subaltern studies collective, as it is also called in India back in the early 1980s, the subalternity as a concept gained a worldwide currency. This group was founded by Ranjit Guha. In the preface to Subaltern Study, volume first, Guha write, I quote, the word subaltern stand for of inferior rank. It will be used in these pages as a general attribute of subordination in South Asian society, expressed in terms of caste, class, gender, and office. Then it led by Gayatri Chakravorty Spivak. The concept of the subaltern moved to the further more complex theoretical debate with intervention of the Indian American post-colonial feminist critic Gayatri Chakravorty Spivak, who was criticized in her groundbreaking essay "Can the Subaltern Speak?" The assumptions were projected by the Subaltern Studies Group. She stands for woman. Her major concern of subaltern in her essay "Can the Subaltern Speak?" was about woman. She mostly focuses on woman. And as a differentiated gender because of the outrageous exclusion of their participation in anti-colonial history. The subaltern theory. Can the subaltern speak? What must the elite do to watch out for the continuing construction of the subaltern? The question of woman seems most problematic in this context. Clearly, if you are poor, black, and female, you get it in three ways. If, however, this formulation is moved from the first world context into the post colonial context, the description black or of color loses persuasive significance. The necessary stratification of colonial subject constitution in the first phase of capitalist imperialism makes color useless as an emancipatory signifier. In Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak, we found that her major focus on women, and for this writing of this essay, the reason behind that one day she saw one incident happened with Bhuneshwari Bhaduri, and she had to be Sati, and Sati means the a woman who had to die or with her husband, and this was happening with Bhuneshwari Bhaduri, and with this context, Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak, the idea of can the subaltern speak. Spivak faced with this difficulty to specifying the realm of subalternity, shifts to reconsider the issue of the subaltern group by dealing with the problems of gender and particularly Indian women during colonial times. She reflected on the status of Indian women, relying on her analysis of a case of Sati woman practices under the British colonial rule. Spivak relates the fate of Bhuneshwari Bhaduri, a relative of Spivak's who hanged herself in 1926, Calcutta. Bhuneshwari's story interests Spivak because while her staging of her suicide exemplify the interventionist practice that resistance entail, the absorption of her story into the broader culture reveals the futility of such gesture in the face of the patriarchal order. This patriarchy was instantiated clearly in the debate around widow immolation, known as sati in British India. Bhuneshwari, an unmarried woman, did not, of course, commit sati, but for Spivak, her act of suicide was nevertheless significant because it was an instant of resistance against the patriarchal ideology that generated sati. Then Pramod K. Nair tried to define the social formation, subaltern, dominant group, and ideology as social formation and subalterns they constructed. So social formation is class, and class in accordance to class, there is subaltern is a working class, and the dominating group was is capitalist or bourgeois, and the ideology known for class and working class is capitalism. Then as same when we talk about empire, then in empire subalterns are native, as we Indian were the subaltern when European were ruled over us. Then the dominant group was were European, is European, and the ideology known as colonialism. Then in when we talk about patriarchy, then subalterns are women, and dominant group are men, and ideology are gender. And in nation, the subaltern are ethnic or caste minorities, dominant groups are a majority, and the ideology are nationalism. Cultural studies and subaltern. Spivak uses the term double blind borrowed from Derrida to address the question of the rupture between a recent class body and mind, self and other, among other opposites as well affinitive categories. Spivak defines cultural as a package of largely unacknowledged assumption, loosely held by a loosely outlined group of people, mapping negotiation between the sacred and the profane and the relationship between the sexes. Cultural study scholar is able to perceive the complexity of culture in two ways: in the gap that exists between academic discourse and the culture as practice, in the culture of metropole which he inhabits as an insider. So, in conclusion, the concept of subaltern, initially introduced by Antonio Gramsci and further explored by scholars like Guha and Gayatri Chakravorty Spivak, has shed light on the marginalized and those of inferior rank in society, often based on factors like caste, class, gender, and office. She challenged assumptions within the subaltern discourse, emphasizing the importance of gender and the struggles faced by subaltern women. Her work highlights the need to recognize and amplify the voices of marginalized individuals who have historically been silenced within the dominant narratives. These are my work citation. Thank you.